Welcome to the next ICG webinar, where today we are going to talk about the automation of the automation of a estate agency, and how much should you automate in your estate agency? What should you automate? What is the most efficient ways to automate it in your estate agency? Where do most estate agents go wrong with that automation? And what can we learn from previous automations, including stuff like marketing with portals and CRMs? Today, I'm joined by some most excellent people. Today, we actually have my co-host is Ian White, who I will allow for 30 seconds to talk about Leeds and the fact that they've won the championship. We also have Christian Byfield from the Depository, who is both an agent, but he also runs the Depository, which is a post-tenancy automation platform which allows you to make people move out really quickly and easily. We've got Patrick Cape from Apex, who helps estate agents with floor plans. Steve Rad from Inventory Base, helping people with their inventories. We've got the wonderful Amy Shields from Sprift, who are the property data firm. The most amazing Brian Farrell from Aquaboom, who helps estate agents with their post-valuation chasing to get more valuations. The lovely Heather Staff from Spectre, who helps estate agents get more business. We've got Bradley from SMS Speedway, who helps people with marketing and direct with regard to text messaging and things like that. And then finally, Ben Sellers from Starbury, who helps estate agents with websites. So welcome everyone to that. The first question I would like to ask is, and we'll just open that up, is what is the difference between process and automation? And I'd like to ask Brian that one to start off with. So off we go. What is the difference between process and automation? Brian.
Okay, you asked me this question. This was the very question I was asking everybody else not so long ago. The difference between process and automation was concluded, we thought, to be the difference between whether you've got people involved or not. So if you automate something, you push a button and some things are going to happen after that. The things that happen after that probably don't require human intervention.
Okay, anyone else want to add something into that? Bradley.
I would also add to that automation can help add value to what your humans are doing and remove some of the boring and some of the grunt work stuff that is basically a net cost to the business, and lower the cost to the business through automation. Whereas your processes, of course, is how the business actually operates, and you're always seeking to maximize your process, but you're not necessarily seeking to maximize your automation in every way. You need to strategically automate.
Okay then, Ian, you're a mentor to some of the biggest estate agents in Britain. Do you think most estate agents have got their processes right? Because surely you need to sort your processes out first before you can decide what to automate.
I think some have most businesses are either built on a very strong systems and process background. Roman's, my old business, I would say, was right up the top end of being able to deliver a fabulous system and process. So the answer to your question is yes. I think the guys at the top end are. I think the problem is the world has changed and everyone's having to reinvent those systems and processes and the automation to go with those systems and processes because of A, the world is just changing anyway technologically, and B, COVID-19 has expedited the need for new processes and new touch points with estate agents, with clients, and the sheer volume of leads that just people hadn't expected require really rigid processes backed up by automation. Otherwise, you just ain't going to get through it. You can't cover it all. The stuff's going to fall through the cracks.
Now, in terms of automation, a lot of people say, why should you automate? Why should you automate? And really, do you think it's a balance between saving money and getting more money? So which one do you think is, go for it.
Yes, so I'll put an example out there actually of where we cross this, because I see automation and processes as sort of a ladder, if you will, sort of stairway. So it starts with obviously a problem, and you solve that problem, you have your people there to solve that problem. At some point, obviously, you can make that a process, right? And therefore you can scale that across multiple people, you can scale up that service to a point. So a great example of that is when we, at Inventory Base, launched a transcription service. So one of the problems in the industry is documenting a property, the condition of a property is quite long-winded, tedious, takes a lot of time. And therefore, as some of our customers got more familiar with the terminology, they switched to dictation. So they could walk around. If you think of typing in or writing down notes in a property, it could take some time. Zipping around a property with an audio recorder, you can do it in 10, 15, 20 minutes, what you would do in a couple of hours, obviously writing up a report. So that allowed you to get in and out of a property. Now, there was a process in place to send those audio files over to a third party or an employed resource to then take the audio files and type them up, right? So it started off with doing it myself. Now I'm too busy. I want my evenings back. I'm going to outsource it to a labor-intensive group or person, and this is what Inventory Base brought along. We brought along a team of people around the world that could take the audio files and type them in on a customer's behalf. Where it then became automation was the next important step. 1%, 2%, a minor amount would obviously come back inaccurate. This is prone to human error. If you're thinking about typing a dissertation, every couple of hours, because another job comes in, I've got to write another 10,000 words, another job comes in, I've got to translate these audio files, and it could take up to 5 hours to translate the audio files. There is definitely room for error, there's definitely room for missing things, and that it's a problem when you miss things because these are documents that have been signed and they need to be in full to be compared to, for say, a checkout. So what we did is we started to robotically read these documents. So a customer would produce their audio files or produce their PDF, and they would import them, and we would then programmatically start to output voice or programmatically read documents and put them in, which kind of eliminated human error entirely. And it did it in about 30 seconds as opposed to waiting 2 to 3 days for someone to return your report. So what you ended up with is, through automation, a much more accurate result, a much more pleasant result, and for a cheaper price in far less time.
Ian.
I think in answer to your question, the way I would always look at it from a customer's perspective, one of my customers, a client, is first and foremost, does what you're about to do automation, or even just technology in general, but we're talking automation for this webinar, is it going to improve the customer experience? If the answer is, and is that a positive, negative, or neutral response? If it's negative, don't do it. If it's neutral or positive, then move to the next stage. Will it make my team happier, more efficient, more able to cover more ground? If it's positive, negative, or neutral, if you hit negative, don't do it. If you hit 3 neutrals, you're doing it for the sake of doing it, and it's just a cost. But if you're getting positives, you know, along those 2 or 3 checks, and the second thing is, can I afford it? You know, is it going to make a difference to my P&L? So, but if you're not able to answer and tick off those things, then frankly, you don't need automation. Automation is there to solve customer need, team need, efficiency need, financially. If it does those 3 things, then it's probably a great product. You should be working with it.
Yeah, I agree with what Ian's just said. I think when I was thinking about automation, from an estate agent's point of view, exactly what Ian said in terms of customer experience, but also, does that automation free up capacity in your team? Because that is what you want. You want capacity in your team for your team to be doing the value add parts of their job. And I think with estate agency as an industry and as a whole, there is so much of an agent's day spent doing things that I wouldn't categorize as a value add from an estate agent's point of view, that can be automated. So freeing up capacity is another one. And then the second thing I would say on that is, you as an estate agent, what is your advantage? What is your advantage that you have got against your competitors? And can you automate anything to help you magnify that advantage? So I would say, yeah, it's twofold. Freeing up capacity to deliver what Ian was saying about customer experience, and magnifying the advantages that you've already got.
Okay, Patrick.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. Automation's got to provide a competitive advantage. So from a small scale, if we look at the listing process, if I can automate the generation of a brochure with my branding on it in front of a client on a mobile device in the property, and get the emotional buy-in to my brand, that's a real advantage. I can show that that's going to bring speed to market. I think freeing up time obviously saves cost, allows more time to make outgoing calls and build your brand by gaining more customers, getting more appointments. But I think it also can reduce risk. So again, looking at the listing process, built, if you combine automation with data validation and not allow certain processes to go ahead until you've got the right information or got the right checks in place, and you automate things like AML processes, land registry checks, you can ensure that you're compliantly listing properties without the worry of it being falling foul of fines or breaking the law.
Bradley.
Yeah, just pick up on what Stephen and Patrick has been saying there. We've also got the COVID situation that has added a lot more unexpected and frankly, in some cases, unwelcome elements to the process, such as before reviewing, needing to check up with the people who are attending if they've had any of the COVID symptoms. But there's also, as Patrick was saying, adding value around that property experience, such as automatically following up with a survey from people who have attended a viewing, to say, are you interested? Would you, do you want to pursue purchasing this property? And we've seen a very large uptick in agents wanting to bundle these additional checks along with their automated process. And one of the key features here is to not be affected too much by the additional requirements around COVID, and to try and use automation to get away with a lot of that additional overhead that otherwise you'll have to take care of.
Isn't it interesting that Peter Knight in his 4i magazine a couple of weeks ago said that somebody, and I know we're just talking estate agency here, not lettings, but he actually said that you could actually run a one-person estate agency with 100 stock by just one person. And he said prospecting could be done by Prospect Engine, active nurturing programs through Spectre and Dataloft, inbound telephone with Moneypenny, outbound telephones with SMS and Speedway, and again also a little bit of Moneypenny again, marketing appraisal stuff with Sprift, post free valuations with Brian Zackerboom, photography, floor plans and boards local, 3D tours and virtual tours with Apex. We've got websites with Starbury, portals is the portals, and viewings could be done by Viewer. And when we can outsource our sales chasing, I mean, in essence, this brings me on to the next question, do you think we could end up actually getting rid of all estate agents and just having an automatic, a bit like travel agents? So let's throw this one in. Okay, so let us go for Amy first.
I think it's a really good point. I actually really enjoyed that article from Peter Knight because I think it was very clear that you could literally be an estate agent but actually not do very much of the actual estate agency work. I think for me, something being an estate agent, you still need to have certain control over certain things. So, for example, valuation preparation, you still need to have that knowledge and you can't automate that. So with Sprift, obviously, we have all that data and that knowledge there in one place for you. So it saves you going to multiple websites. So it automates it, and your routine, if you like, it automates the routine of not having to visit 10, 15 websites just to prep for one valuation. But it doesn't take away that personal aspect of it, that actually that estate agent still needs to actually do the research.
Hey, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I would endorse the article. Was fabulous. It's one of the best articles I think I've read, because I think it's very insightful, it's very vogue, it's very on point for where we are now. But so if you haven't read the Peter Knight's blog on 4i, then get on and have a read of it. But I think some people have read that and sort of concluded that you're taking estate agency away from estate agents. If you read it properly, you're actually putting estate agency directly back with the estate agents and you're actually allowing estate agents to do what estate agents do best, which is to list, sell, market, strategize, network, and do the things that really makes an estate agent, and taking away, not even taking away, using modern technologies to allow the estate agent to be an estate agent rather than a PA, an admin person, a marketeer, and all the other things that go with it. So I actually read that as the flip side, and I'm 100% on with it. If you can outsource it and you can get it done better than you can do it, and you can reapportion your time to be with people, other people you do business with, do it. 100%.
I mean, we'll go to Heather in a second, then we'll go to Brian, but do you actually think probably the word automation should be changed to the word outsourcing? So Heather, your point. Then
Yeah,
Brian.
No, I definitely agree with Ian. It's not a case of replacing the agent, it's freeing the agent up to do what they do best. But also, it's fascinating hearing you list absolutely everything that an agent is meant to be experts in across that, timeline of events. It's impossible for an agent to be a subject matter expert in every single bit of that journey. And, if you take what we do, because obviously that's the only thing I can talk about, but we have become subject matter experts in prospecting. We have the data from thousands upon thousands of agents over 5 years to know what type of prospecting works, when to write to people, what type of letter, what functionality to merge together to get the best results, what wording works best, what letters work best. For an agent to do that themselves, just for that one piece of that jigsaw, it's just completely infeasible. So yeah, what you're really getting from the automation / outsourcing is the expertise of every single person on this call and every single person who offers this technology, and the experience and the insight that they get from doing it. And basically it's our entire lives. We do not just give somebody access to our tool and say, go for it. The first thing that happens is we have a strategy call. We understand everything we can about them. We understand their advantages. And then we give them our knowledge in terms of, this is how to best get the most from your prospecting. This is what we think you should write. This is when we think you should send it. And that's another benefit of outsourcing that you just cannot get if an agent was to do all of this themselves.
Brian and then Ben.
I think that article that Peter wrote, I think I heard Peter say afterwards that you can outsource just about every element of the estate agency process with the exception of the market appraisal, which you probably want to retain ownership of, because I think most agents are employed to go out and do market appraisals and to win instructions. Although I'd add to that if an agent sat down and went through what they do and all the various disciplines and skill sets that they've got in-house, they work out what they're best at delivering in their marketplace based on the people they've got in their office. But if they're looking to retain the market appraisal element, they should also be looking to keep ownership of and not outsource or automate too heavily the client journey. So, and I say that in part because of I've got a buy-to-let or two out there, and one or two of them are being marketed at the moment. I get more calls from competitors saying we can help you than I do from my own agents who are just don't phone me up and tell me anything. I'm almost tempted to disinstruct one each week after they've won the instruction because they've not called me that week. It'll be Spectre Spectre will be making that good, of course, but it will be that, won't it? I hadn't thought of that. The penny's just dropped. But yes, indeed.
You're welcome. I think you should switch.
But I find it a little bit amazing that we are not, you can't not service clients. You can automate all the other stuff to make sure that you've got time to service your clients and find new business and secure new business. But you do need to make sure that you retain client relationships and do a good job doing it.
Ben.
Yeah, I think that, there's always that horror that, is tech going to suddenly take over. I think even in the portal days originally, people were worried that, what if they let the customer start popping their properties up there? What would that do? And there was a sudden horror back then, I remember. But in reality, there is a massive skill in getting the best price in a timely manner, or whether it's sale or letting. And I think that the more agents can understand that if they can work their data more intelligently and actually get that data joined up, and when I say joined up, the advent of APIs, which is web services talking to each other each way, then really starts allowing all the people on this call and all the other ICG approved members who are delivering some awesomeness to connect up their bits of data. So for example, we're forever the big instruction. The biggest request we get is we need more instructions. And I think all agents still like that. And we're saying, well, great. So let's get someone to pop in their postcode. And the moment they pop in their postcode, you do postcode lookup. Now I've got their full address. They do next. We immediately pull in some data loft information to match up to that postcode. We dynamically pull in their office or an individual, the sales. We then next, and we pull in SPRIF data, and it goes on like that. So it's lovely combinations that ultimately give the agent much more sort of power to their elbow to convert these people and start a conversation where they've actually got all that information at their fingertips.
That does sound like Skynet for a state agency, but I love it. Steve?
Yeah, interesting. I was following this because I used to actually live in California, and it's very much like that over in the States, right? It's realtors, and they're essentially sales and marketing individuals, and that's what their job is. Obviously, they're marketing properties, they're marketing themselves on a daily basis, because you go down the road and you'll see their face on billboards, and that's that kind of model. And if I read correctly, although I'm not an agent, I'm on the supplier side, but Keller Williams seem to be having a lot of success with this model as well. And when you take, for example, you look at, let's say, Purple Bricks, because obviously everyone knows that brand, that almost seems to me like it's a portal version of realtors, because it's all process, obviously it's automated driven. You run onto the website, and as a landlord, I want to sell my property, so I put my address on that website, and what happens then is a waterfall or a trigger of processes behind the scenes that say, okay, we need a property description, we need an appraisal, we need some floor plans, we need some photography, we need an EPC, we need to make sure the electrical safety certificate is modern, up to date, and all of the obligations that obviously you would have. And these are not necessarily one company, these are lots of different individuals, lots of different contractors, lots of different companies, all being instructed from that one interaction point back over then. And obviously then the automated processes fall through, and at the end you get a bunch of deliverables, i.e. a listing on Rightmove where the photographer company uploaded the photos, the floor plan company uploaded the floor plan, and it comes together that way. You're still only dealing with one particular person in your local area, but obviously there's process behind the scenes and everything's going on behind the scenes.
Christian, you're an agent. What would you say is the most, apart from your own depository, which you'll take as read, and you can have a little 30-second promo at the end of your piece, but what's your best piece of prop tech that has saved you time and...
So the best thing we put in is a really obvious one, DocuSign, digital documents. That was the biggest single transformational shift in our company, particularly being in lettings. Lettings paperwork, particularly renewals paperwork, used to be horrendous. You know, we used to print out, I mean, I think our contract's something like 20 pages. So we would print that out in triplicate. So we'd send out a 60-page pack with a cover letter out to tenants. We would put stickers on the pages where they had to sign. We'd put guidance notes. We'd put this, that, and the other. At least half of that paperwork would get returned incorrectly filled out. Signatures missing, dates filled out wrong. You also had that awesome thing where tenants would return it and they'd put their coffee mug on the contract as they were signing it. So you'd have coffee rings all over it and furled corners and blah, 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 which was a beautiful document to send out to your landlord. So I think, you know, if we're talking sort of ROI, I don't think anything has delivered the scale of ROI that digital documents has for our business as a really simple transformational tool. And that really, you know, I always talk about the triangle of whenever you deliver a solution, it should ideally work on all three sides. It should work for your customer or consumer, it should work for your staff, and it should work for your business as creating a margin. And that delivered on all three. It was super simple for tenants. They couldn't mess up and get it wrong. It was super quick for us. It also removed, you know, I think our license costs considerably less than we used to spend on postage. So the ROI just on a cost basis was instant. Factor in the man hours of chasing contracts, reissuing contracts, etc., you know, and it's huge. So it's a really, really simple thing. But that, I think, you know, whenever I talk to Anne, my partner, that is the one thing for her that sticks out, that above all else was just huge. It's a really obvious thing, but was massive.
Do you think that I'll come to you in a second, Bradley. There's an awful lot of agents moan that there's a lot of prop tech out there for prop tech's sake. They're creating solutions for problems that they don't have. What advice would you give to prop tech suppliers about actually creating a solution for agents that people want? Anyone? Look,
I think prop tech suppliers really need to listen to agents. I mean, that's a massive part of that, no matter how knowledgeable you think you are. And they need to do it as early in the journey as possible. There's far too many. Although, I mean, this is changing. I think that view of prop tech, I feel is more relevant to where we were a year or two ago than more so where we are now. I think we're seeing better designed products that understand the industry, compliance, operations better. So we're seeing better products launched from the start. But no matter how well you think you know it, you know, we launched the depository sort of properly in March, and the amount that we've learned in the last 4 months is huge in terms of, you know, slightly different ways agents like to do things, slightly different operational models, you know, and we've rolled out a ton of changes in the last 4 months because we're just happy to learn. And I think that's another problem is a lot of prop techs, they don't engage agents early enough, but also when they launch, they are so fixated on the growth targets that they've got. And understandably, particularly if they've been heavily financed, they're under pressure to meet some pretty astronomical growth targets. But I think a lot of prop techs could do a lot better by sort of stalling that initial sales drive 3 to 6 months and spend that first period really learning and listening to agents, engaging with the right agents who are going to give you quality feedback straight away to say, look, we really need it to do this, or, you know, this would work much smoother if when we did this, it did X, Y, Z. When I look at, like I said, what we've put in the platform in the last 4 months, at the depository, we're very happy to be growing slowly at the moment because we're learning so much. And if we suddenly onboarded 300 branches or 300 brands, we wouldn't know which way was up. You know, our entire focus would be just getting those agents on and onboarded, and we wouldn't have the time or resources to really listen to those agents and feed it back into the platform. By sort of launching more slowly, that's given us that opportunity. And the feedback that we're getting from the agents is, you know, a lot of them use products that they've used for years, and they've become very frustrated with those products because they've seen very little evolution in the last couple of years. They've seen more evolution with us in 4 months than they've seen with some products they've been with for 2 or 3 years. And the feedback we get off the back of that is exciting. And not all the changes we release are relevant to each agent. There is stuff that we're rolling out which is very bespoke to just a small number of our clients. But the fact that they all see the platform constantly evolving every couple of weeks with like, right, we've rolled out this, and this, we've fixed this, we've added this, and they find that really exciting.
Thank you, Christian. Now, I know Amy and Ben, you put your hands up, but Brad, you put your hand up a few minutes before. Have anything to add to this?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Just listening to what Christian was saying, it was very interesting because some of the key words that I picked up from that were the listen, the feedback, the communicate. And I'm mindful of what Ian was saying earlier and also Ben, you know, about the central role of the agents. And I think it's time that we gave an ICG top tip. So this is my proposal.
No, you've got to wait till the end on that one. Don't you dare.
All right.
You saved that one, bad boy. Amy, now this is interesting, Amy. You're a Matt at the Watkins studio on the Watkins sofa yesterday, and he said that he actually made a mistake as a prop tech supplier, that he was actually changing his prop tech solution because one agent would say, "Oh, does it do this and does it do that?" And he said he wasted 3 or 4 months of his life trying to tweak the product instead of saying this is what it is and this is what it does and this is what you should do. But that's an interesting comment. Right, over to you, Amy, and then Ben afterwards, please.
Yeah, it was just really interesting what Christian was saying, because we've made over 300 upgrades and improvements on Script so far this year, and all of that is based on agency feedback and comments we get from clients. And you know, you can't take everything on board, and yes, we certainly have had a problem where some agents want something and other agents don't want that, so we've had to take a view on certain bits, and we do have some reports that we bespoke for clients. But actually for me, it's been a really interesting journey with PropTech, because coming from the agency world as well, when you start, like Christian and Heather said, you have kind of these strategy meetings with your clients first and try and understand, you know, why they've contacted you, what they're looking for within the products, etc. But actually sometimes it's not a problem, and they're not always looking for a solution to a problem they don't have. Certainly with Sprift, it's actually sometimes about a new way of working, and embracing a different way of using property data, and embracing new reports to use, and change and tech and evolving rather than actually solving a problem. And actually, when they start using some platforms, and I've had this with certain prop tech, and actually I had Spectre just as I was leaving estate agency, and it was really interesting because my mind was blown. I'd never had a prospecting piece of software before, and I sort of looked at Spectre and was like, holy crap, I've just spent 16 years of doing my own tout letters, taking all that time doing it, manual process, etc., etc. Got given Spectre to play with for all of 3 months, loved it for 3 months, and then obviously left. But in my head, it didn't immediately solve a problem. But then after 3 months, I suddenly realised I didn't know that problem existed, because I suddenly was saving so much more time on an automated process. And I think it's exactly the same with the tech we have, that actually it's not solving a problem, but suddenly, 2-3 months in, they realise they're saving so much time on preparing reports, doing their research, then the kind of penny drops. But actually, it's not always about problem solving.
Ed.
So yeah, I think one of the, just sort of, going back to what prop techs, need to do, and probably I think one of, the prop techs need to play a similar role to agents have with their say no to Rightmove. We need to be saying to CRMs, say yes to prop techs, because sadly there are too many CRMs who have been left in the dark, literally left in the dust, should I say, where the prop techs have known that they need transferable data. They need to have their APIs, as I mentioned earlier on. They need to be able to talk both ways, because one of the big hurdles for agents embracing new prop tech is they really want their single source of truth, which should arguably be their CRM. And, I'm delighted to say there are some edgy, CRMs out there that are doing some amazing jobs. Obviously the member of the ICG, being Repit, have got their PAS. There's some other really awesome kids on the block who are embracing it too. But there are also some giants, and I'm going to dig at Zoopla, because I want them to wake up to all of us people on this call. We need to be able to push and pull our data. And in the same way as Amy said, we can do it iteratively. So just open that little bit of your applicant record and let us pass maybe some feedback. That's all we need initially. So it's something that's very important, and it's quite frustrating. And I think that is one of the barriers between agents and prop tech, really getting the best.
Hey, what, Zoopla giving away their data? That's the reason why they bought that Uswitch. They want to keep the data to themselves. Ian White.
Ben said, I can't remember exactly what words he says, but he's going to give it a little bit of a dig to Zoopla. I'm going to hit them round the head with the cricket bat. If you are with a ZPG, one of their CRMs, and they will not play ball with your required automation processes or your suppliers, move your CRM. It's as simple as that. Don't live with it anymore, because they are blocking. And it's not just Zoopla; they just happen to be one of them. But they are probably in the camp of being awkward with it.
Next, Ian, you'll say that people should be using Rightmove and have a plan so they're not beholden to Rightmove. My God, heretic!
I have Zoopla's portal fabulous. Zoopla's CRM policy about integrating with third parties is pants. It's in the way. It's blocking the industry.
There is a school of thought to say that the two automations that have happened in the last 20 years, the two big ones, have been the automation of putting the property in front of the person, which is the portal, and the CRMs. And actually, has that made estate agents lazy? And could this outsourcing actually make us even more lazy?
Possibly, but what it has definitely done is created a barrier between good prop tech and getting to the data source and being able to integrate with the CRMs, because the CRMs have been the gatekeeper. As an investor, frankly, I know there's not a lot of point in investing in tech unless it's got access to the CRM. It's a waste of space, because it doesn't matter how good the tech is, it makes it very, very hard to get traction. So, one of the reasons that we may have a disadvantaged industry in terms of its automation, its tech, and it's helping out the agents to be agents, is because the CRMs have been a gatekeeper to it. As Ben says, the PAS is great from Repit. There are others circulating in the space that you're going to come in and give a bloody nose to these guys because they can't, they're blocking great things happening, and it's just not right. But the only language they will understand, as I see it, is here's my intent to move to one that will move. And I know it's painful for agents, but it's not going to be as painful as staying in an old-fashioned, antiquated system where you have to do everything manually, and you have to have, it's all not tied up seamlessly. Some of the stuff that some of the guys on this could, on this group alone, could combine and do everything, but the engine is the CRM, and it holds collaboration apart, and it shouldn't do. It should be putting it together.
Amy,
do you mention UPRN, Chris?
Unique property reference number. Yeah. Okay, let's not get too boring on that one. We'll fall them to sleep. Right. We had a question coming from a lady called I can never pronounce her name. Sian, is it Sian or Sean? I can never. Oh, I do apologise, darling.
Sean.
Sean, there you go. I tell you what. Don't even. Anyway, tools are only as good as the user. So, are prop tech firms really bad at teaching their their people that buy their stuff to actually use their system properly? Christian.
So look, I think that is another failing of a lot of, whether it's prop tech or whether it's outsourcing. I think that's another huge failing, is way too much focus on signing a client. With weak companies, the good companies understand that first 3 months of working with a client on a product is critical and really sets how the next year is going to go. If you literally sign a client up, set up their account, and then that's it, you don't contact them till renewal at 11 months, guess what? The likelihood is they're going to drop your product and they're going to say, oh, actually, your product didn't add much. It was a bit crap. We didn't get this. We didn't get that. If you spend that first 3 months closely monitoring how your agents are engaging with that product, how they're using it, I know Heather at Spectre does this a lot. They reach out to a lot of their agents about their email templates and their triggers and constantly feedback data to that. That is absolutely what it should be about. You should be making sure that your product is fully embedded into that agency, and that agency is embedding it in a way that they can leverage the most out of it. But there are way too many services out there that, like I said,
we lost you there.
Lost your volume, Christian.
We've lost you, Christian. We've lost you. It must be the Vikings. Interesting, I was talking to a really important prop tech solution firm, and he actually said that the vast majority of the people that use his services only use 15 to 20% of the piece of kit. Isn't that fascinating? Heather?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Christian's just said, and it's something that we've spent a lot of time looking at. So we've completely redesigned our customer success. So it's not just a sign-up initial setup call, it's the sign-up strategy call, then the training, then the 3-month review, then the 6-month review. And the other thing that I would say, whilst we're sort of talking about automation, is very rare. And I have to say, there are some exceptions to this, and I include Sprift in this, as, by the way, a recipient of a Sprift report recently as a home mover. And I instructed that agent, and I also got an Akaboom report, which was great. But anyway, the point that I was making is it's very rare that you can get a tool, get it and run with it. Usually there is some input to set it up so that the automation runs properly at the start. So when we were talking right back at the beginning about process, the best companies that we work with actually have a very, very good process for implementing tools and automation in their business. And I also think, and this is a message to all prop tech suppliers, we have got to give agents the ability to see and learn from what they're doing. So the reporting functionality, which yes, we've got Inspector, but we're also really building on at the moment, because one of the huge advantages of automation is that you get to learn faster. So if you can learn faster, you can get better faster. So there's got to be a feedback loop in terms of what is working. Okay, for example, with Spectre, some of our biggest clients do a lot of A/B testing, because you can see which instructions received which letters, and therefore you adapt constantly. As a general rule in my business, we A/B test everything, and I think agents should be the same. So yeah, learn from automation and constantly iterate to improve on it.
Okay, so Ian's just come in and he said he loved how the depository and Sprift onboarded them, and he couldn't do enough. So well done to the pair of you two. Well done on that one. Interestingly, do you think that we as prop tech firms actually should we instead of just bonusing them on the sign up, we should bonus our salespeople on customer feedback and even customer retention. Ian?
Yes, is the simple answer to that. I think that could be and I think agents, in terms of the way they remunerate sales staff, but I do think the businesses need to make sure that they definitely identified a problem that they want to solve. They've identified a supplier to work with, but they themselves need to be part of this education process, because if you introduce a new platform of any sort to a group of estate agents where the leaders in the estate agency take little or no interest in its implementation or its return on investment, then you will get to the end of a trial period or a contract. And the bigger the organisation is, the harder it is to get that down through the group. So the business itself needs to engage. They need to have some responsibility. It's not, you can't just hand somebody a fast car and say, right, there's the keys, there's the start button, there's the brake, there's the accelerator. They need to know a lot more about the car, but then people need to constantly measure and check. So I think I would definitely be interviewing my prop tech business if I was wanting someone to onboard and say, have you got a success team? What about your account management? So I'd want to know about that side of it, but I'd also want to know what I could give to them to make my people adopt the process. I would actually prefer to pay more for the product and engage fully with the prop tech solution, because I'm going to get much better value if all of my people use it to 100% of its capability. And it's very rare to find a piece of tech that's used 100% to its capability in any business.
Brian, do you find that people use your Acroboom, which to be honest with you is a fantastic piece of kit? Do they use it to its full advantage?
I'd like to think so, but no, we know they don't, because when we go through the account management role and we look in their accounts, they're missing a trick, 2 or 3. Can I make a point though, just slightly outside of Acroboom, but it's prop tech companies do a great job of using the latest technology to create a product that automates something, that does something fantastically. And I'll use the example of an email automation system, not that I've got any experience in developing one of those, but on the receiving end of automated emails is an appalling experience with any business outside of a state agency. And I think there is a huge value in making sure that the client communications that you put out there are personalized and relevant, and not just a standard drafted paragraph that could work for any Tom, Dick or Harry. Because if you're on the receiving end of an email, or frankly any communication to Tom, Dick or Harry, it feels like it. And in my world, personally, I just archive it. I'm not interested in continuing reading the email. And I think maybe in prop tech worlds and the onboarding process, there's a lot to be said to helping the client do that extra mile bit, which is probably outside of the world of technology. But if it was an email, again, I'm using this as an example, you would make sure that what was going out to the client was hugely personalized, hugely relevant. Acroboom sends out emails, but we've got 99% stay subscribe rates. Now, I hope we can maintain that. And I think Christian was saying earlier, you need to listen to what clients are saying, and I hope we do. But it's hugely important not to feel like you've automated to move on without going that extra mile and making it relevant and personable for the end reader or client.
I think we'll finish there and we'll move on. But I think the final thing there, Brian, is that it's got to be automated, but it hasn't got to feel automated at the end. And let's be honest, we all know, you try and get hold of someone at Amazon, you can't speak to a real person, but it does feel like you're dealing with a real person. So, final thing, we're going to go around the table and ask you top tips on what you think is the easiest or most efficient way to automate or outsource business. So first off, we're going to start off with Bradley. Top tip.
Thanks, Chris. So my top tip is to have a look, first of all, at your communication end to end with your customer journey, your all the various people in the organization, externally and internally, and that includes your prop tech. So you need to have a look at what needs to be communicated, to whom and when, because at the end of the day, the business process is a dance and people have to do the right things at the right time, and communication underpins the lot.
Thank you, Bradley. Christian.
So my top tip would be to sit down and map out every single process in your company. every single one from top to tail, end to end, front of house, back of house, map it all out, and then look at each one and figure out what value do you add to each process. And the less value you add to that process, the more it should be automated.
Patrick.
So that's how you identify what to automate.
My top tip is to, like Christian said, map out the process, pick the parts of the process that are considered the boring administrative processes that can just be done at a click of a button rather than multiple phone calls or emails. And then the time saved, pinpoint the parts of the process where you can be more personable, spend more time with the customer, and build your brand. And avoid automating those and falling into trap, as Brian mentioned, and becoming an automated email at that point.
Good stuff. Ben Sellers from Starbury.
I think with relevance to what we do in building websites, the form is probably the most important part of an agent's, what they're trying to get from their website, which is data capture. Utilize conversational forms, the likes of Typeform, give you this great ability to map out these journeys. So you might start with 4 questions, but depending on which of the answers they give you to those 4, you can go off on multiple other journeys. And then you're really starting to talk to them about what they're interested in and capturing more data.
Thank you, Ben. Heather.
My top tip would be to delegate responsibility to somebody in your team for implementing any tool that you're going to automate anything. So they are assigned responsibility and then regular check-ins, because if you do that, somebody is responsible for making sure it's implemented properly, used properly, and that you're getting the returns that you'd expect.
Excellent. Amy.
I think it's got to be to embrace tech and change, but do not forget the client's journey within that.
Excellent. Super Brian.
Automate the process of updating your clients weekly or every 10 days. Set up a Zoom call, tell them it's every Wednesday at 10 o'clock and they just need to be on it. And then you give them an update on how things are going.
Steve.
Muted, Steve.
Outsourcing, so no one said it yet. So I'd say obviously focus on your profit-making tasks, outsource the ones that you can still make a margin on. But more importantly than outsourcing, actually empower your landlords and your tenants to empower them to tell you what they want, because then you'll find the processes, you'll find, who needs extra attention, who doesn't care, and therefore it'll be easier to manage. And what you're missing from that. I think the feedback loop is something someone mentioned here earlier. Once you figure out the feedback loop, hopefully your business will be booming. Dun, dun.
Hey, that was the last. Sorry, no. Do you realise what you just said?
Yeah, I was waiting for about 10 minutes to say it.
Finally, Ian White.
My advice is a little bit biased, really. I think I would do exactly as Christian said. I would write my map with all my processes on. I would work where I would look to where I either wasn't adding value, or in order to add value, the resource needed was overwhelmingly ridiculous. I'd look at all my pinch points. I'd go to the ICG. I would jump onto our website. I would book a free consultation and let us hook you up with the right people and the best in class to have a chat with, and that's what I would say. We've done the hard work for you guys. We've been through, we know who the good, the great, and the ugly are. Let us put you in touch with the good. You don't have to bother with anybody else. Just come to our website. We'll hook you up with the right people.
It's actually quite a good website, and I'm not just saying that.
Built by Ben.
Well, I wouldn't do anything less.
Thanks, Chris.
I just want to say thank you for everyone who's been a speaker on today's webinar. I'd like to thank all you boys and girls out there in estate and letting agency land for watching it. Thank you for your time and effort today. I hope you've got a lot from it. The next ICG webinar is on the 18th of August, where we're talking about winning and servicing the instruction. And I must stress to you that that particular one will not be on Facebook Live. So if you actually want to watch it or get a recording of it afterwards, you do actually need to register through the ICG website, otherwise you won't get to see it. I want to say thank you again to everyone. So wave and say goodbye to everyone, and we'll see you all being well on the 18th of August. See you everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.